glad you could do this because I kind of wanted to, you know, occasionally go and look at the Greenpeace site just to see what's going on. And recently, when I clicked on, there was a message that said, I think it was regarding an article, and it said contact your MP about this. And I thought, okay, that's interesting because that's like a new, that's that's something that I would see in an American site, you know, but I never see it here. And I wondered, is this because I'm concerned that I feel like, as citizens, we are also not politically literate. Like, how do we create the change that we want? You know what I mean? It's one thing to sort of just respond when it's already bad and you have to go onto the street and complain about it. Actually, what we really should be doing is actually messaging our MPs during the process, asking them to vote for or against the bill and so on and so forth. So, what are your thoughts about that? Is this something that you are actually actively doing now in Greenpeace, being more clear about what you are directing the reader to do?
Okay, yeah, I mean, thanks for asking the question. I think first of all, I think just to recap some, I think the moments we want to champion about against all these environmental destructions, then we need to get all these key decisions maker to involve. So who
Right.
are the key? Yeah, so who are the key decisions maker? They are beside the businesses, we are also have the policy maker from parliament,
Sure.
from the state assembly, and also the city hall. So I put it categorized into the three level. The first one is the local city hall, local council, like who will be like checking the situations of the roads. I mean, if your lampu the road is not functioning well, you have to inform them, check with them, talk to the ali majlis, the local councillor, and then whereas for the issue involving the state from the negeri, then have to reach out to the adults, the state assembly person. And then whereas the national policy, then we have to reach out to member parliament. And all these environmental issue are also related to local development issue. So when all this because when the governments, I mean the policymaker or the businesses want to start any developments, especially mega project, then they need to start a consultations process, and then which means the local committee need to be consulted in order to push for the sustainable development. So that is the works that we want to push it.
Right. How knowledgeable is the average Malaysian citizen about these processes? I mean, for example, when I used to live in New York City, if they're going to do something, going to build something, there'll be a sign outside that property. You know what I mean? And people have X amount of time to respond to it. They can go for the public meeting and stuff like that. I feel like we in Malaysia, we are not really used to that process. We don't really. I don't think people are doing that kind of notification well enough. And then they don't necessarily know how to participate in that. You know, and I feel that this is actually an area of development that I think is let me back up a little bit because I think, and you should know because you are one of the very early activists. Um, and, I remember even, then before we changed the government, I actually saw messaging that was actually just trying to teach a citizen that it was okay to vote. You know what I mean? Or to vote differently. Don't vote, you know, I feel like now there needs to be messaging that teaches them how to actually affect the levels of government. It's like I don't think people actually know how they can interact with policy makers, and actually create the kind of change that we need. Uh, do you know what I mean? Is that something that it's noticeable to you?
Yeah, I think in this process we call clean environmental governance, which means what I mentioned just now, before government started any like development, what they usually do is they will just release a notice, especially for the small project they will release in the city hall, and then for the some of the big projects, sometimes we can go to Department of Environment, the website, sometimes they will have a notice to show that the process asking public consultation, which means the community who are involving, who are staying nearby to the area, they are invited to join the briefing sessions, which means consultation. So in this process, the consultations process will involve, especially will get as many stakeholders as possible. All these stakeholders are required to give their input, especially something like what kind of job opportunity they will get or what kind of benefits. For
Yeah.
example, if this project happens or if any accident happen, what kind of the maybe some precautions or some actions will be taken by the government. So these are the process that need to be informed. Yeah, need to be during the briefing.
But you're saying that you actually have to go to the website before you will know about this process?
Yeah, usually, look at the history. Usually, the governments or the businesses they will publish it in their in the website, and also publish in the newspaper. And because of that, now because if you look at that, nobody will just spend so much of time to
Sure,
say, oh,
sure.
what will happen? Yeah. So
Yeah.
their duty is also the duty, especially the local councillor. Their duty also help to inform to let the member of public to know that there will be a development in that area. So they also have to inform all these people. Yeah, so that the member of public are aware what kind of development will be happen in this area.
Which unfortunately is not a really very efficient process. I mean, I noticed from Johor Bahru, they're very poor at communications. They're very poor that for you to understand what actually is going on. There are Facebook pages, but there's, for example, just like in JB, our supposedly public transport system, it's so hard to understand what decisions have been made. They will like suddenly they'll be like one message after the other, and then it'll be quiet, and then they'll completely change direction. And the general public are not participating in this. They have no say, and then suddenly it's like going on a different trajectory. So I
And
think
people will many member of public will start paying more attention when the destructions happen, when the problem happens. Then
yeah.
when media give more coverage on certain issue, then it will
Okay.
generate the pressure. Yeah.
So that's really where it does happen, like when the media starts to pick it up. I mean, one topical one right now is this whole data center thing. You know, I actually wrote a piece on it recently because we there was a protest recently in Johor because it was problematic. It was creating dust. It was building problems. But really, that's too late. You know, a lot of the decisions have already been made. And then B, it actually doesn't solve the problem. That the real problem is actually policy has not been very good around this subject. Unlike other countries where the government is actively pursuing more downstream rewards from AI, building more, yeah, they're building more knowledge and capability. We are just continuing to be property developers. We're just buying and selling land for data centers. And then we only complain when the problem is very, very localized. That data center is creating a problem for the individuals around it. So I think so. That is actually an issue with transparency, communication. I also think. What do you think? What do you think? I think even our content, our information content is not very good. We're not really learning early enough about issues. We're not really reading good opinion pieces about why they should be doing it. It's still very much like it's like a football match. It's my team against the other. So
Yeah. So
I guess
that's why the big businesses want to invest in developing country because
yeah,
of many reasons, especially the cost. I mean,
that's
the
it.
cost is cheaper, and then also the environmental regulations maybe is
Yeah.
like weaker. I take example, why a lot of the businesses move to developing country for investment. Of course, sometime when the local community want to challenge it, then they realize that the businesses they are not against the law. They are just for example, some of the emissions or the some of the pollutant that they discharge into the river,
Yeah,
they are not reaching the limit yet. It's more on like they say they are complying. The businesses say that they are complying the law. They are not more. Yeah, they are still discharging it within the limit. So it
sure.
means that in developing country, a lot of the businesses they are not against the law, but just the way they do is unethical. So that is also the key highlight and the issue why many businesses want to invest in developing country at the
So
name of
does,
like opportunity, job
so
opportunity.
so does your do you have like someone working as a media watch person? Like someone is literally just watching what's going on? How does that work with Greenpeace? How do you
I
monitor?
think what we did was, well, of course, we subscribe the news. I mean, we keep in touch with many like journalists who will focus on different issue, and then
Okay,
we will follow up some of the keywords. For example, some of the investigative journalists that we are working closely with focus on like forest issue, especially tracking the supply chain. Then
okay.
they will send us some. We will exchange information. We will see what kind of the latest development like in EU, the what is the latest law and how does it affect to the supply chain in developing country like Malaysia. So all this information are very important for us to decide the next step. So that is something the we call of course, yeah, what this is what we call like media monitoring. We also subscribe some of the newsletter or some of the database for us to monitor some of the works. Yeah.
How do you do it internally? How do you do you have like a weekly meeting? Are you like checking in with each other? Like, this is what's going on. What should we do about it? And then you probably have a regional check-in or a international check-in. How does it work with Greenpeace?
Oh yeah. We have a different campaigns team. For example, like plastic waste. Plastic waste, of course, this problem happen in across Southeast Asia country. So our campaigner we have a like weekly catch up to see what is the latest development. For
Okay.
example, what is the Basel actions about the amendment? How does it affect to the developing country like Malaysia? And for forest work, we also will see like Malaysia and Indonesia, especially being the biggest palm oil exporting country in the world. So we will also see what is the latest development and then how does it affect to the supply chain and how does it affect from the exporter, buyer, oil refinery group, and also the fast moving consumer goods company. So these are the policy. We always need to receive the new information and digest it and to analyze it. Yeah.
So, do you have at the moment, do you have like what is a short list of things that you are particularly concerned about right now? You mentioned forest, even the last time we talked. So this is almost like a newer area of your interest that you're looking at what's going on with forests and the indigenous population, which is kind of connected to that. So that's one topic that you're closely monitoring. You continue to monitor plastic waste. Is that still an issue, or is it improving or
Yeah. Mm.
improving? Right.
Uh, I will start from for plastic waste, and also because this happens because of a few years back Malaysia was known as a world dumping ground because China imposed import ban. When China imposed import ban, and then Southeast Asian country became the destination. And recently, I would say it's like now, recently Malaysian government also cracked down against many illegal facility, including the e-waste. Like the news that what we can see, like Malaysia Anti-Corruption Commission also cracked down, arrested many senior government officials who are suspected that they are involved in all this corruption related to the
Mm.
waste trafficking. So that are some the works that we receive, and then we also send it to make it to newsletter and send it to our supporter. That is for the waste management issue. And meanwhile, for the forest issue, we also in touch with our community leader, especially indigenous people in the different parts of Malaysia, to before we know that the development might happen in that area. What we did was we sent to that area to work with some of the community to do some of the prevent, meaning that we say like there could be some issue happen here, and this is what of the works that need to be aware. Then that is the process we are doing, and because of all this problem happen evolving, Then we also work with the many local community, especially local. The information for local community is very important because they can provide the real time information. Because from us, maybe we are from based in Kuala Lumpur. So what we did was we do the satellite monitoring to track some of the information. But however, we also need to get the information on ground. So because the people on ground can give the real experience. So what we
Who are
did
the
is
people on the ground? Are they
the look affected
NGOs?
community.
But are they NGOs running this, or are they community leaders like Pemulus, or what? How? I'm just trying to
They
understand.
are our ally. The ally can be media, the local community like the Ketua Kampong, indigenous people, affected
Yeah,
community, and
yeah.
also the policymaker, which means those people
So
who can
so you guys
support our
actually
work.
have to do a lot of outreach, right? You really have to work with people. Otherwise,
Yeah,
you're not you can't get information to actually
yeah,
even enter your thought process, right?
yeah.
What about? I mean, I see like you guys. I see like now you write opinion. You know, you have your own site and you write opinion pieces, uh, which you share out. What are the content sites that are are there still some good content sites regarding environmental issues? Like which ones would you recommend?
Or you mean that the good, I mean, or content site. Okay. For content site, maybe I will recommend, I mean, from the international forest news, you can look for Mongabe. And then for
Okay,
Malaysian, yeah.
I do look at that. Yeah.
And then for Malaysian one, we can also look for the Makaranga.
Okay. I
Yeah,
didn't see that. I didn't look at that too often. Okay, I have checked that
yeah.
out.
And then
Okay.
one more is also quite important is the regional news portal is Eco Business.
Oh, okay. That's a new one
Yeah,
for me.
yeah.
Okay.
Eco Business quite useful because they will always highlight environmental issue and link it to the business and
Got it.
financial
Got it.
sector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. After this, if any come to your mind, send me. I'll create a list. We can post it on our thing because I think that is an issue. People don't actually are not actively engaged with this information. Like like for example, let's say in the States, the bigger media uh, publications will have a green section or a sustainability section or so you would if you were semi interested, you would click on this. Whereas we don't really have that very much here. It seems to be very, and as you said before, this is why you know foreigners want to come here because it's so not well exposed. There's not much light on
Yeah.
these
Mm,
areas, so people
mm.
can get away with a lot more stuff. So you've mentioned forest waste. What about haze? Is that still an ongoing issue? Somebody actually asked me the other day, Is that haze in Johor Bahru? It seems really hazy." And I was like, I don't know."
Okay, yeah, that's good question. So I can share you the link. What we always refer to the ASEAN's haze monitoring the website, the central website that I mean the data provided by government in Southeast Asia. We
Is
also
that
compare
AICS? Is that
yes,
AIC? Okay,
yeah,
okay,
like recently the haze that in Johor and also in affecting Singapore is a pit fire from I think pit fire from certain area. Like there were also some huge pit fire happening in the Endor Robin in Pahang.
okay,
Mm. So all these are the wildfire, I mean the forest fire, and then because all these the haze are caused by the fire in Malaysia and then affecting Singapore. Because usually when people think of think about transboundary haze, think they will relate it to the transboundary haze from Indonesia. But recently, what are mostly from Malaysia, Malaysia, and
really,
also yes,
really.
and yeah, the pit fire and and went to Singapore, yeah, because of the wind
Wow,
directions,
that's new to me.
yeah,
But
and they
but
all
this one,
yeah.
it doesn't. It's not crossing my timeline. You know what I mean. This information is not. And I'm just trying to understand what can we do about it? It's like how do we help the process? I guess it's like it's just not a very efficient process.
Oh, maybe I will say like I think the keyword is a community led solutions because when I mean nobody want to against any development they are good for them. So community-led solutions is a key word to solve all these environmental problem. When we push for community-led solution, we also highlight environmental democracy. Democracy means that there will be more local people to participate in the process, to discuss, to debate what are the best development they are looking for. Of course, everyone want to have a sustainable development. They are also benefiting to everyone because then these are the way that are benefiting to everyone. So how do we do that? Is to decentralize the power from the top to down. So decentralize the decisions making process, which means all the local committee need to do it. So okay, I take example when there's a problem happen environmental issue happening in Johor. So the resident in that area in their taman they need to discuss to see to petition. Of course, they can also ask support from some NGO, but we also from our experience, I think it's very impactful to have a local NGO who can represent them. For example, getting some NGO from Kuala Lumpur, from Penang, maybe might not that helpful. We can do some skill share and training. However, the most impactful one is still go back to the local committee because local committee because of they are staying there, so they will always can react with all the latest incident. So with the support, I mean this can that I will also can break down into a few elements. With the first one, we must have uh, I think strong community who can organize themselves. Second, we also can have some skill share from other NGOs, environmental group who can also share some case study. How do we learn from each other? Number three, in also the support from the media because media can be also generate pressure to the policymaker, provide a check and balance. So when media cover the story from local committee, they can also ask the politician, the policymaker, and then can meaning that the policymaker they will know that okay someone are monitoring them, so they will feel the pressure. So it provides the check and balance. So these three elements are very important to have to push for the sustainable development that we want.
Can I just check? Are you saying that the haze issue is still high up on the issue list, or is it lower down now?
I would say it's a seasonal issue because now we look at it's because El Nino. El Nino, the drought season El Nino, it will make the peat fire even worse. Because look at the history here, Malaysia, Indonesia, we have a lot of the peat forests, especially peat forests. I take example, mangrove are part of the peat forest. So mangrove, all these peat forests contains lots of water. No, if nobody disturb them, no company drain the peatland, it will not dry easily. So because of the man-made activity, man-made this man-made activity, and then the drainage also make the land, the peat soil become dry, and then it will easily get fire. So which means transboundary haze and the forest fire in Southeast Asia is they are the man-made problem, man-made disaster. So if
But
no one disturb
it
them, then the
orange
yeah.
is it like orange alert, yellow, red? Where do you see it on the sort of
I would say in the middle now because it's because of the El Nino. Last 2 year was La Nina because I more flood and more heavy rain. It will reduce the problem, but now it moved to the El Nino, and then when the lands become drier, soil become drier, if someone just throw a cigarette into the bush, that will easily to get fire. It will make the problem even worse. So it will
what
last until June.
what about flooding?
Flooding is also another problem. So because of
To me, it seems like a newer problem that seems to be getting worse. Do you know what I
yes,
mean? I have
so
my gardener. Uh, they live in poorer areas of town where they don't care so much about them and what's going on there. And the water comes up to here. You know,
oh wow.
yeah. And then they blame them for clogging up the drainage and stuff like that. But really, they actually have no control on the problem. The problem is actually coming from development, which is
Yes.
blocking off rainwater runoff, water tables being affected. All these things are actually part of larger policy issues which are not being well controlled. You
Yeah.
know,
I
and
think
I
the
the
talking
problem is,
talking about yeah,
yeah,
talking about the flooding, I think there are two factors will result a serious flood. I think the first thing is deforestation. So look at the
right,
when flood happens because of the deforestation in Kelantan. So you can see the landslide happen. It turn in the water is muddy. But another thing is poor urban planning. What
yeah,
happened in Kuala Lumpur? That one is the major factor is poor urban planning because we were told to I mean there's unplanned how to say there's an overdevelopment. So so
same
one
here.
street that yeah there are so many development and because of that so many people staying there and then overpopulated overdeveloped and there's no enough drainage system and then resulting the flood it become more serious. So there are two issues. One is the poor urban planning. The second one is deforestation.
Yeah, okay.
Mm.
All right. Anything else okay, another thing I've been seeing on your site is actually you're starting to pick up on microplastics as being which is a sort of a new emerging big issue. And I don't think we get enough information about it. For example, I was just reading that, uh, microplastics also come from our roads, it's being released to our roads, it's being released to our polyester clothing, it's
Yeah.
actually and it's a big problem, it's actually entering our bloodstreams, it's growing into a significant public health risk. But I feel like people are not, I mean, they're sort of conscious of it, but they're not really understanding how this is impacting them and how they can actually participate in reducing it. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's also a good feedback. I mean, in our campaign experience, we one of the key factor that make people that don't pay much attention on that is everyone will just they pay more attention on putting food on the table. So, for example, if I think that and take away like tap out the food, I mean, the thing that what I can see is like okay, the people that think that because it's cheap, I purchased this product because it's cheap. I want to tap out because of convenience. So what about health issue? Maybe lots of people think that people used to it, but when people get more disease or some chronic disease because of that,
Yeah.
people find it very hard to link it to
Yeah. Yeah.
microplastic as a contributor
Yeah.
because there are so many other incidents. I take example. How do we the even we check with many medical practitioner like doctors. The challenge is the doctor also have to think that there's a study to show that microplastic are making our health even worse. But however, compared to someone who also consuming microplastic and smoking, people will think that
Right.
the health
Yeah.
becomes serious because of smoking. So there are many other factors that instead of just microplastic. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting.
Mm,
Okay. I mean, those are the things that are on the top of my head. Okay, another sort of area that I kind of want to talk with you about is actually because I follow American politics because I used to live there, so I'm kind of quite aware of the mechanics of it. And right now, you can see it's sort of entering what they call the midterms.
mm.
It's 2 years in. They've already seen 2 years of Trump's policies. There's 2 years to go before the next election. So there's a kind of incentive to really start to build a momentum for that 2 years ahead. I don't see that here in Malaysia, although we are actually very similar in terms of how it is actually playing out. We're somewhere between the last election and the next election. And, like in the States, this is the point in time where good politicians start to craft very, very strong messaging so that you can really understand what are the issues, what you want to see as change, what you want, and then They also then start to platform the change that they are suggesting as a way to get out of it. All this I don't see here. What I see here is that the political process is almost non-existent in the middle, and then right at the end, suddenly, oh, the MP is at the temple. He's at the Indian temple and the Chinese temple and in the kopitiams, and it's actually not in any way addressing policy. And even I remember at the last election when I was actually studying the manifestos, and I thought, wow, these are really badly written. Some of these manifestos were actually very poor. You know, some of the best articulated ideas were, some guy from Muda, some Chinese
mm,
guy from Muda wrote a very good what he thought it should be. And I thought, we don't have enough public intellectuals that are actually crafting these kind of ideas that the public can actually interact with and go, oh yeah, yeah. And then this is how I should be thinking. So what we do is we end up at the election period and we're just voting for our team. We just choose the team that we voted for before, and there's a good guy and there's a bad guy. Whereas I have changed as a voter, as a Malaysian voter. I'm really, now that I've seen what UMNO did, I've seen what Barisan showed before, and they said it was horrible. And then I've also seen the inefficiencies and the poverty of ideas from the Pakatan people. I'm like, I don't know if I will vote for a team. I would maybe vote for a politician who has
mm,
good ideas,
yeah,
who I know has been very effective. Like I like Khairi Jamaluddin, for example. I think when he was health minister, he did a great job. When he was the sports and youth minister, he also did a great job. We had great Olympic uniforms and stuff like that. So that's where my thinking has shifted in that I want to start looking more closely at the actual politicians themselves. Whether, in fact, I was just reading about Ong Kian Meng, who when all this started in 2018, he was one of the star politicians to enter the opposition, and then he ended up leaving. I think he was
yeah,
disillusioned, and then recently he said, "Oh, I will support Kyrie when if
mm,
he decides to proceed." And I thought this is an interesting direction for Malaysian politics. It's actually more grown up. It's more
mm,
evolved. That we are
mm.
actually starting to understand issue based rather than party based uh, allegiance. What are your thoughts about that?
I would say some against it's up to the citizen to decide. I
Yeah,
mean the politics they want to see. Because last time we were only given like two choices. You either
right.
choose main parties, party A and party B. I mean two
Yeah,
coalition. So what we need, like a lot of people, they also think that um why don't we try to push for a third force? I mean the third we need
right.
they are looking for more third, yeah, the third alternative. I mean, the third alternative, I would say, is much better because now sometimes people will choose that there are no other choice. I mean, sometimes people are the dilemma of the people is like let's choose the less corrupted one. Sometimes we always compare like
Uh,
choosing who are
wait.
the
Yeah,
less corrupted one. Yeah.
yeah,
So we
yeah.
need like third alternative so that people can make a better choice.
Because sometimes, for example, I like the American political process because it's very interesting to me. So, for example, the nomination part of it, when eight politicians will want to run for president. And then there will be eight different visions for the future, and that's also quite interesting. So, oh, okay, here are some eight different ideas, and then some of these are really quite strong. These are not so strong. But what will happen is, as the field narrows, as they get closer, and they drop out, those visions actually start to uh, uh, accumulate within the one that's leading. They will start to pick up, oh, okay, this resonated with the voter. I think we're going to put this onto our platform. And I
Mm.
think, and I wonder if one reason we don't see that is because we don't see enough voices in this. And I think that's what you're saying with the third right. It's actually, it would be probably just good to just hear a different point of view about this. It's like, how would someone else do this? Would you say?
Yeah, against is up to the majority. So I mean, politicians that know the games, so they will choose because politician is those they want to get majority. So if the majority the of the people want their politicians, their people representative to have more present on the groundwork. For example, for me, member parliament shouldn't be just visiting, attending the funeral, wedding, and all this. But all these are important. All these are important to show that this people's representative is inclusive, practice diversity, all this. That's why doing groundwork is important. However, the roles of member of parliament also need to be check and balance in the parliament to decide the policy. But the thing is, not many the maybe the people, the citizens, they will not care what kind of the motions of the issue their representative debated in the parliament. So that is something that we need to highlight. I take example for those who stay in the like Klang Valley, like people in Petaling Jaya in Subang, the people who have more time, maybe the I would say like a middle class person who have more time, they will spend more time to see what were their people representative respond towards certain issue. But those maybe in rural area, their main concern is like put food on the table.
Yeah.
Those politicians who can give me food or to
Yeah.
give me rice during festive season, I think I will vote for them. I think it's very, very direct. So I wouldn't blame this. I mean, I wouldn't blame this one, but it's more on like politicians. They know what the people want on in their constituency.
Have you been? Are you aware of like Zohran Mamdani in New York City and what
Yeah.
he's doing, which is quite
Mm-mm.
interesting as well because uh, he's actually winning. You know, his ideas are actually working. You know, he's actually finding a way to leverage that. And do you see any? Are there any politicians here in Malaysia that are interesting? That
If you look at, I mean, comparing as well, Madani, or maybe we can compare with all these younger politicians, because younger politicians they might be more maybe more energetic and more maybe practice more energetic and more inclusive. They might
yeah,
be like giving more comment from different people. So this is something that I can see. So how do we see the change? I would say the like very old, very senior politician, it's time for them to just take a break and let
yeah,
the younger generation, I mean from all party, let younger generation to take over and then
yeah,
let the young blood to take over, then we will have more fresh idea.
yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, this was an issue when I first came back and I was listening to the politicians. So sometimes you just have to wait for them to die, literally, right?
Yeah.
But are there any young politicians that you like?
I would say is I mean good and bad. So it depending what kind of issue. Because for me as an environmental issue, I will support those who will champion for environmental issue. However, environmental issue is still not the main concern from most of the people. I mean, compared with
Sure.
other issues like economic perspective, etc. So now is I will support those. I mean, I would say overall young politicians who want to fish work, want to get more um support from the millennial and Gen Z. So they will be more open to accept different idea. Look at that. Now, who will rule the world is the millennial. I mean, the generation, those who are between maybe late 20 to early 40s. I think this batch of people, they're slowly becoming the manage. I mean, the leader in all in the
Okay,
system.
so
Yeah.
let's look back to the content space. What do you think? Like, because in America, the content space is now changing.
Mm,
In fact, they're seriously saying that the last election was won and lost on podcasts.
mm,
What do you think of our podcast? Because there are podcasts here. There's Close Kejap with uh, Harry Jamaluddin. There's a couple of others that I've sort of follow, and they're actually quite good. Because for example, I saw the guy who one of the higher ups in like Party Socialists speak on that, and
Aruchavan.
yeah, and I was like, I wish he had more airtime so that we could hear. Because actually, from an ideas point of view, he's always on the right side. Uh, how they translate gets into political process is actually debatable. But I feel like maybe just the content is we could do with a bit more content just so we those ideas could just come our way a little bit more so we can just, you know, what do you think about the podcast space? Do you listen or watch any of those? Do you find any of them interesting?
I would say that people start to watch podcasts. I mean, for political issue, I think since Khairi Jamaluddin
Yeah.
started the Keras Kejap, and now Rafizi also started like Young Penhenti, Young Muhammad, Young Penhenti, and then Need Nazmi also started Lebih Masa.
Yeah.
So all
Yeah.
these podcasts, sometimes if you I can see some of the movement are changing, because last time how do we measure people, whether people are supporting you? Sometimes it's like, for I think maybe 10 years ago we are measuring the impact by to see how many people turn out in our seminar or the activity organized by us. But now we also measure it by see how many um listenerships, I mean, or readerships in
Right.
our podcast.
Right.
So the more the merrier. So I mean, people are measuring it because of now different generation has a different trend of consuming the content. So I think this is a new trend.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a new era, and I wish you know. I think I certainly want to try and get more people to listen in on these things. Especially now, it's so much easier to do it like this. It's like I
Yeah.
don't need equipment. It's like we can do it. This sort of conversational tone to problems and solutions should be a little bit more. Do you go on any other podcasts? Have you been on other
Oh yeah,
podcasts?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like what?
Mm. There are a few groups that I forgot the name. I mean, there's a left wing or also right wing one, but I mean, as long as we can insert our
I
call to
agree. I think
actions,
it's
yeah.
what is your message? I don't think it should matter what team it's on. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree.
Mm.
In fact, what I see in what I see in like recently on two podcasts, one of them was not close to Kajab, but who's the guy who's on close to Kajab with Kyrie, the one who had the
Sarah
Chinese mom?
Hamdan.
Yeah, him. He was on another podcast, and I was quite interesting because he also, like someone else, he was actually saying something that is describing a problem we have in Malaysia is that we don't understand. Malaysia still doesn't have a tagline. What are we about? You know what I mean? You know, uh, we don't actually understand. We don't have a message for all of us. We're still so broken up into different racial groups and
Mm.
income class, whatever. We don't have a unifying idea, which I don't know why the politicians are not working a little harder at, because if they have that idea, they could actually capture more people, you know? You know what I mean? They're not just locked into their base, you know? And I think this is where the American political system works a bit better because every now, like right now, more Republicans are voting for Democratic uh, politicians, you know, because that's what happens, where if the messaging is right, people will change, people will switch
Yeah.
sides,
Mm.
because they're looking for solutions. They're looking for better ideas and solutions, or they want to punish. I think that's another concept we don't understand very well. We got to learn to punish our politicians. You know, we're not going to vote for you if you're not going to put it in your manifesto, or if you put it in your manifesto and you don't deliver it, I'm not going to vote for you. We don't
Yeah.
understand that punishing process very well.
Yeah. I remember there was one, I think there was one quote by, I think, one famous economist, I think Professor Jeffrey said. I mean, he mentions that now the real struggle now of the world now is not about like pro left wing or right wing. It's about the real struggle of the world is to live. How do we overcome our common crisis, and then to live together, and yeah, to overcome all these common crises. Because
Yeah,
many years ago, people might think that even in Malaysia, we keep talking about race, religions, royalty, but now what is the real problem? I mean, beside economic issue, we also have to think about our livelihood. For example, clean water, clean
I
air.
agree. I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah,
all this, no matter
yeah.
who you are. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the problem when we start thinking about environmental issues or sustainability. People don't care if they can't put food on the table. They don't care about animals in the jungle or the orang asli.
Mm,
They don't care about deforestation because they can't even control the food on their table. They can't even manage
mm,
that. You know,
yeah,
so this is also part of the we need as part of the political process. We actually need more effective uh, politicians and policies that can solve some of these problems, and to take us forward.
mm. Yeah,
So yeah,
sometimes I think we don't, last time I also rely on politicians to solve it, but I think that we should stop, we should manage our expectation, don't rely on others or politicians to solve our problem. We
yeah,
can initiate ourselves. Yeah.
yeah. I think another related area is actually, I think we need our politicians to have stronger rules and boundaries for the people that are actually causing the problems.
Mm,
I think that is also something that's missing. Which is happening in the whole AI data center space. You know, that's why it's not. We are going to not do as well as Vietnam and Indonesia in the next 10 years because they're making better decisions now
mm,
about development that is actually going to pay off. They're going to
mm,
get richer because they're developing talent. They're developing a bit like how in Malaysia, for example, and this is something I only learned not so long ago. One of our biggest assets now is actually our electronics industry, but the groundwork for that was laid by Garakan in the 80s in
yep,
Penang.
yeah,
So they were the other party, they were not this opposition. So it was about good ideas, it was about a visionary leader, good economic policy that is really paying off now. And I think that's another thing that we really need to understand with political processes. We don't understand the mechanics of how things work. We don't understand that good policies or bad policies are not being created, are being or not being created. You know what I'm saying?
mm,
So, for
mm,
example, like in the data AI space, not great ideas are being developed because they're just it's just a race to build data centers, and
mm,
then all they're doing is now dealing with the washback from that problem when it's creating problems. There's building problems, there's electrical supply problems, there's water shortage
mm,
problems, and rather than actually building something that has value in the future, because and I keep saying this, is that I don't think we understand how fast this is working right now, this whole AI thing and how it's going to affect jobs and
yeah,
economies and stuff like that. I
mm.
don't think we're really that well prepared for it.
I think the moment we need to prepare this problem, there are another bigger problem are
That's another bigger
happening.
problem. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah.
But if I look at that, I mean, we can link it here back to the crisis here is look at what happened in Iran. I mean, in the Middle East. Now
Sure.
the problem is when the oil global, because of the crisis here, the conflict in there, it also make our current how to say, I mean, the cost of living are increasing because of the
Yeah,
oil,
you're right.
diesel, even
Absolutely.
plastic. Even
Yep.
the single-use plastic, the price will be double
Yep.
soon
Yep.
because plastic is a byproduct of the fossil fuel. So
Yep.
this is also an opportunity for businesses to see this is a way to cut costs, but at the same time can push for, I mean, environmental friendly alternative without relying on this single-use packaging, which also used to be cheaper, used to be very cheap, but now also become more expensive. So it's also opportunity for businesses to shift their mindset and also to look for better, suitable alternative.
Right.
Mm.
Okay. Last topic is how are you managing your messaging with Greenpeace, or like where are you? Is your social media good? Is it Facebook that you have the best response, or is it your website? What's working for you, and or what's working well for you?
Now we are actively involved more in the Instagram because that is
Oh, really?
how we
That's it.
yeah, our Instagram get more engagement
Oh,
looking at that. Yeah. That's why I think our Twitter, I mean that we didn't use much in the Twitter, but Instagram, TikTok, there will be more engagement. And because of I think it's also maybe because of the content and also our target audience. So how do we measure the impact of our uh, uh I mean in social media the engagement? So usually we see how much the content, how many the content, whether how much of people it can reach. I mean the engagement rate, and also how many people sign up the petitions based on our work, because this is a conversions that we want to see. For example, if I see a content, I see it and then I skip it. That's it. If I see, I like, I share, I sign petitions and
yeah.
sign up as a donor, sign up as a volunteer. These are the conversion. Conversion meaning that people taking action after looking, after watching your content. So that is some of the measurement, the indicator we want to measure.
So
So no,
who
yeah.
creates your content? Do you have dedicated staff doing this, or are you
Oh,
just
we
purely
have, yeah. I have a team member who are also working on that.
okay? So it is
Mm.
a job now, right? To man
Oh yeah,
to
yeah. Mm.
do the creation and the management of it, to actually measure it and have it affect your next round of content, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm trying to figure this out as well. I mean, I find that Substack's quite interesting in that but it is a little bit niche. It does, it's a, I don't know if I don't know if I've got the energy to do like a TikTok, which is kind of very
I mean, same to me.
right. It's like, oh
Yeah.
my God, I don't know if I want to do that. It's too
Yeah.
much. And then
Mm.
also it is actually quite demanding to do many Facebook and Instagram, and
Yep.
it's actually quite difficult to spread it across.
Yep.
So I think certainly for myself, I'm just trying to because I like how Substack works. So I'm sort of building a sort of a content site, and then I think we'll take it from there.
Yep.
Because,
Mm.
here we're able to write long form articles. We're able to do podcast ideas, which I think are actually quite good. I think it's easier for someone to just listen to a podcast than it is to actually read through a lot of information. You know,
Mm.
it sort of breaks it down a little bit sometimes. I get more responses from it from people who listen and stuff. And it also becomes more like real sometimes, It's sometimes
Mm.
these problems seem too abstract until it's like, oh, my kid got sick because of, this or what have you. Um, okay, I think our hour is up. I think that was it's been an
All right.
hour I think, that we talked. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks
That's
for
good.
doing it, and let's do it again and just keep catching up because I think this is quite good. We just keep
Yep.
keeping pace of what's going on.
Yeah, I think this is the style, the podcast style. Many people like podcast style because it's like the style is like santai, like very casual discussion, and then
It
after
is,
that they
and it's
talk about
easy to
serious
listen
issue.
to. I can have it in the background and do something
Yeah.
else, but I
Mm.
can actually learn something and maybe like even when we do our podcast, we will put links below if
Mm.
somebody is interested and
Mm.
wants to dive a bit deeper into the subject.
Okay.
So, all right,
Yep. Yep.
great, good talking to you.
All right. Yep.
Take
Thank you.
care.
Okay. Bye.